Yeah, we're still in Brazil, Club Ventos Centre. And if you've been watching the previous videos, you all know it's a JP Neal Pride Centre. And we have got the full JP Neal Pride team. We've got Werner Gnigler here. We've just talked about the waveboard, so I hope you've watched that video and the freestyle waveboards. We're now going to talk about free ride all the way up to sort of free race into slalom. So, what have we got, Werner? What have you been working on? Or maybe let's touch on the boards in the range and how they kind of flow through.
The free ride segment is the biggest in the windsurf market still. So we all want to go on smaller boards and go into the waves. But the reality is that the freestyle market is the biggest segment by far. And that's why...
The free ride?
The free ride, yeah. The free ride segment is the biggest. So that's why we have 3 lines. You know, it seems to be a lot, but it all covers special needs for the riders, and that's why we developed 3 lines.
Well, I'm guessing, just for, I mean, I can imagine people out there going, look, I just want to go fast, turn around, whatever. Which board do I pick? There's bound to be some good crossovers. So it's not like if you pick this one and maybe you could have this one a bit at a time, this one will cover bases. So let's cover through who would buy the Magic Ride, Super Sport, and then obviously we know the Slalom is the full-on racing machine. So I'm guessing free ride, Magic Ride.
Yeah. It depends on the level of your riding skills.
Okay.
So that's where we started with the Magic Ride. That's the easiest board to ride, and it's the easiest way to get planning and to learn the jibe. So it's the widest concept, and the most forgiving. But it's still, in a JP, since we talked at the beginning where we're coming from, we always have the approach to be sporty, and like we come from the radical side, from the wave side. So even that's the easiest going freeride board, it's exciting to ride. That's where I put a lot of focus on. Even a wide, easy going board, forgiving board, once you're on the plane, it has to have a loose feel on your feet, that you're excited. But nevertheless, this is the easiest going.
It is the widest, yeah?
This is the widest.
I mean, and it's, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's wider and thinner.
Thinner.
There was a big, I mean, it was a fair few years ago now when this style of board kind of burst onto the scene, and it was a bit of a game changer, as I remember.
Yeah, but every new trend kind of in windsurfing, it goes too far.
Yeah.
Because when these super wide boards came, they were super short.
Yeah.
And okay, you have a super wide platform, you can pull up the sail or stand on it, but you don't get going because the scoop rocker line is too short. And it doesn't have a directional kind of planning sensation. It doesn't want to go. So you're just pushing water. So over the years, I never went too extreme. I always tried to find the golden middle way. But with the Magic Ride, we went longer over the years again, and not really wide because it doesn't work. You know, it's just stable, but you cannot jibe because you cannot rail it up, and it doesn't go forward. So the Magic Ride is also the longest and the widest, and has a thin profile. So it's super stable wherever you stand. So you can have a big area to move around. It's very forgiving, and that's why it also keeps going through the jibe. You don't need the full-on lay-down jibe with a lot of power. You can just
cruise
through, and it stays on the plane.
Is this the best-selling board in the range?
This is the best selling.
Okay.
For years, so it's amazing. We've got such good feedback from the centers and everywhere, and this is...
What do you do with that though? Like, you know, as a shaper, is it almost annoying? You're like, well, can't really change it. You know, is that a thing?
It's a good thing and a bad thing, but the problem is, if someone comes along and says, make the Magic Ride faster, that's easy.
Okay.
But then I lose on other things. So the difficult part is to keep the balance.
So you're just changing parameters, really, aren't you? You just, you know, if you make it, like you say, faster, you lose a bit of jibing. If you make it whatever, you lose a bit of early planing.
Yeah, but that we don't want, because this sport, like, hit the target really well. So if we want to replace it, I have to make it overall better. Because it would be a killer if I only make it fast and lose some other stuff. So that's what I don't want. But anyway, so when it's time to update it, we will work on it, but it will be a difficult task to improve it.
I think it's a good thing. I like, you know, like I'm a big believer. Once you get something that works, it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I guess, like, if you're getting people to say we want it faster, This is why these other boards have come into the range, you know.
So we can start from the Magic Ride. So let's jump to the
Super Sport.
left, Super Sport. This is the most performance-oriented freeride board.
Okay.
It's already getting close to a full-on slalom board. But the difference to a slalom board, it's slightly longer. It has a less radical profile, less radical volume distribution. So it's a little bit longer. Like slalom boards, much fat at the tail because the guys are big. They use big sails. They're very powerful, so they need a bit more thickness and volume in the tail and less in the front.
Okay.
But the sporty freeride guy also needs a little bit of help to get going. He doesn't want to pump like crazy. That's why it's slightly longer, more even volume distribution. But the bottom shape, the V-flow and cutouts, they come directly from a race board.
Okay.
So it's pretty close, and I'm sure most people probably go faster. Like the normal freerider can probably just go as fast as on a slalom board because they're so much easier to ride.
Okay.
So now we have the two extremes, the most sporty and the easiest, and in between we have a new shape. It's called the Super Ride.
Okay. Narrower, isn't it? A lot narrower.
It's a bit narrower, and this is that was also the design concept, because in the freeride segment, a lot of people sail in quite bumpy conditions, because on the lakes or on the sea or in Holland, where it's like
a bit of tide and a bit of water movement.
So there's a lot of chop, and when you go fast over chop, it's not always the most comfortable sailing conditions. That's why we decided, okay, we want a board which works best at these conditions, because these guys are already on a higher level. They can go fast, so they want control and comfort, and they want to do this more sporty, aggressive jibing. And since the board is not so wide, it's much easier to do like a power jibe, a carving jibe, and so on. So this is the jibing board and the most comfortable board. What we changed on this one to achieve this is the board became a little bit wider because it was quite narrow in the past, but the rest of the basic parameters we kept quite similar because it was very balanced. It's also a little bit longer to a slalom board because of what we talked about already.
Yeah.
Longer, just much easier to get going. But it goes to detail for the jibing. Also on these boards, I worked a lot on the rail radius.
Yeah.
So that the apex point, the highest point, is a little bit higher, so the rail itself is a little bit rounder and fuller, kind of. It's not a boxy rail, which doesn't allow you to jibe, it's just a more even radius. And that means that on the speed what you're riding, it just keeps a very constant flotation throughout the jibe.
Just sits nice on the rail.
It sits on the rail and keeps going. And that's why we also widen the tail a little bit, that you have a very good balance in the turn, and you can like carve through and keep your speed.
And bottom shape on these ones, you know, because, you know, that was kind of eye-opening for me. It was a few years ago now, but the difference between a bit of shape and the way it cuts through the chop, is a difference in the bottom shapes in these ones, or?
Like performance boards, what freeride boards are, they all have a very similar bottom concept. So, you know, we all have, over the years, all the brands, I think the Scoop Rocker line became pretty close.
Yeah.
Because there is a certain Scoop Rocker line which works for certain boards.
Yeah.
So everyone talked about it, you know, a little bit higher, a little bit lower and rock and so. But the secret to make the board really work well these days is the combination Scoop Rocker line with the V-flow.
Okay.
The V-flow is the angle you have on the bottom.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do with these boards is to have quite a pronounced V in the front.
Yeah.
Because and the V means that it is a concave. When you hit the chop, it's kind of cutting the water surface a little bit, so it's more gentle, more comfortable.
So that first entry at the chop, if you've got a little bit sticking up, you get that nice kind of flow through it.
Cut through, and it's where it makes the board ride comfortable over chop. And then if you get closer between the foot straps, you want as much lift as possible. So we reduce the V a little bit. And then towards the tail, we open up the V a little bit, that that you have a nice water release.
Okay.
So that means you have a totally different curve on the rail than in the center of the board.
Because of the V.
Yeah, the V flow. And this that's where you do the fine tuning, you know, because we work with kind of a given scoop rocker line. We know that works, and we play around that the water position of the board is nice and loose. And that's why kind of this area is pretty flat, or a reduced V. So when you're riding, you get that lift, and you kind of ride above the chop almost. You know, you fly over the water surface. And that's what we're trying to achieve with this board. Or with all the freeride boards, but this is for this board it's aimed for the choppy conditions. It was a big goal. We also kind of redesigned the fin.
Do they come with fins?
Yeah,
I've noticed the Super Sport has got a kind of
Now they all come with fins, except the Ultimate Wave, but all the boards come with fin. And that's also, you can see, like it's a very constant, narrow outline. With even volume area distribution, so it's not super tippy, not super wide at the tail. We reduced the width here, so a shorter profile is much faster. And this is also a clear indication where this board comes from or where it's supposed to work. Smooth outline, even volume distribution.
38 fin, how wide is this board? Do we know?
This is the 150.
69.
Yeah.
Have you got a formula to find out what fin you should have in a certain board? Because there's a few people have got it. I don't know. Like I've got my own one, but do you have a formula?
It's you know we adjust the boards with the right fin with the range of use. Okay. This board works best, let's say, with 6.5 to 7.5 meter sail. Average weight for the target group, let's say, what about around 75, 85 kilos. So then we go for this fin, you know, and you can't say you're 75 kilos. This board is. We have big spreadsheets where we do recommendations for certain sail
you try
sizes.
and hit the main target.
Yeah, but the standard setup has to cover the biggest possible range of use. So if you're really heavy or really light, you can always go a size up or down, but wouldn't go more than 2 centimeters up and down. So on a certain board size, it doesn't make sense to change the fin 5 cm because then you're totally out of balance.
I wanted to ask you though, like foot strap position, because it's always interesting to me. On a freeride board, is the foot strap position just determined by the size of the person? You know, because obviously there is different foot strap positions. Obviously inboard is a more basic level, let's say, and then as soon as you go an outboard. But in terms of spread, is that just in terms of how long your legs are? Is that simple? Or?
Yes, kind of. That's why we also have plugs with adjustment. So it's the same, you know, for the standard setup, we try to hit the target which covers most people.
But if you're getting a board, let's say, like someone says, okay, I've just got a board, where do I put my foot straps? Because that's probably a question. I do that with surfboards. I get a pad and I'm like, where do I put it? There's no, but at least in windsurfing we've actually got some holes. But is it like, how do you determine where you put the foot straps?
Generally, like the way I set up the boards is that the second hole from the back, in all the plugs, is the recommended starting point.
Okay, good to know.
So if you put it in the second hole from the back, you're not far off. And then if you're really tall or really short, you can bring them closer together. Or depending on your level, you go inside or outside. But if you go, you can see also the inside position is slightly further forward. Because the riders who go for the inside position they don't have such a high level, they're not so advanced. So they need to stand a little bit further forward. And the more advanced riders go a little more outboard and further back.
But on a JP, second hole usually is where and that makes sense, because then if you want to have something with a bit more, I guess, why would you move it back? To get a bit more?
To let it fly more, but then if you need the level. So it's always a spare position kind of. The second hole from the back is already quite like the sporty setup. But if you really want to let it fly, you can go a little bit further back.
Interesting. And mass track, because I know people ask this all the time, obviously depending on boom height, I guess, sail size. But where's your standard position? What are they designed for, let's say?
Middle.
Okay, good to know.
So it's through all our board ranges, middle of the mast base, so it's not so big. And also for the trimming, because a lot of people ask me the same. Where should I put it? You know, I said start in the middle and then maybe do 1 or 2 centimeters change. Not go crazy all the way back. because then it's out of balance.
Okay, and that's the same in the waveboards, middle?
Yeah, middle, yeah.
Okay.
But all the riders, they're within a centimeter forward or backwards, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So it's very...
Right, then we're moving on to the slalom board. This is the last board, obviously. We talked about the construction in the waveboard, but maybe there's a few guys who are watching this who didn't hear about it. Do you want to just touch on construction?
Yeah, this is our new S-Tech technology, we call it. It's the lightest, most advanced technology available at the moment. As you can see everything, all the fibers, all the reinforcing and everything. So we don't want to hide anything.
Yeah.
But it's an unfinished, it looks like an unfinished product, but that's how we can do the most weight saving. And it's the best compromise between stiffness, lightweight, and to achieve that you have to leave something out. Strip it out, and that's the paint. Yeah. Because in the past we tried to hide all these patches, all this reinforcing with color and additional layers, but then we took off completely. So you can see everything on the board, and it's unfinished. It's just after the lamination becomes a clear coat to seal all the pinholes, and that's it. So
this is the full racing machine.
Full-on racing.
So for people who don't know, this probably doesn't come with a fin.
No,
no fin, because I've had a few people go, I bought a board, it didn't come with a fin. It's like, if it's a slalom board, it doesn't, because as we know, fins are very specific to certain riders. A lot of people have already got a lot of fins,
that's right.
You know, and they're not cheap, the full slalom fins.
Yeah, it's very, very specialized. The fin is it's tuning like Formula One with the tires. So, and depending on the weight, from these specialized race fin guys, you can order different stiffnesses, different flexes, and so on. It's such a high level of tuning if you want to be in racing. So that's why it doesn't make sense to give them a standard fin, because they all want something for their own needs.
So who are you mainly working with for these boards? Who's got the best feedback? Who's on it? Or is it a full, again, team effort?
It's a team effort, Our team trains...
Well, going in the past, going from when you first started, sort of 2000-ish through, who has been...
Yeah, when we started, we didn't have race boards. We started only with wave boards, and then freestyle wave and so on, so we extended slowly. But then we had Antoine Albo, Micah Bosianis, and now Enrico, Bruno Martini. All over the years we had many guys, so always with the main guys we're working. In the past I did most of the work in the early days when we started with slalom boards with Antoine and Micah. Yeah. These were the top guys. Antoine won many titles on them.
Micah, I guess, pretty on it, isn't he?
Yeah, he was very good to work with also. And Antoine and Micah, they're both big guys, so it was really good to have these guys. Even so, they're both on a top level. Sometimes we're testing and they kind of had different opinions.
Yeah, and I was going to say, how is that? Because I was speaking to Robert about that, but back in the day, there was almost two teams, because we had Willie Blau on the podcast. Yeah. We should definitely get on the podcast. But he was talking about there was an Anders Bringdal team and a donkey team. Yeah. And it was sort of fighting against each other. And it was had two different styles.
Okay, we worked with, I worked with both of them, so it wasn't like two design teams.
But you're like...
But sometimes, and they were out together, and then with the slalom boards, there's so much tuning, like we have these cutouts. It looks like a simple feature, but when we're testing, the prototypes have full PVC on the tail. So I have a router with me on the beach. They go out, they come back, and then they say, more release or something, so let's cut here. So I go in, cut it out. Then they come back, and it was too much. So then I have to go at night, fill it up again and try a new cutout system. So
just for people who don't know, so when you say PVC, it's basically you've got plastic in your design, which you can cut. I mean, it's PVC.
It's a foam which doesn't take water. PVC is closed cell foam, and I do the whole tail area like this.
So you have it normally filled out.
It's
or maybe some littler cutouts,
cuts,
and then you get the router, and you can literally make the cuts bigger.
Yeah. So that's why also this small diff. For example, we cut off this last centimeter on that board, and then they said no more control.
Really? Wow.
And then, we fill it up again. And then, maybe we cut this deeper. and then go deeper. That works great, and it's unbelievable. But you know, it's Formula One.
I mean, everything is happening
on
on
the last bit
of this board, isn't it? So, you know, and like people say, because a lot of people won't understand exactly what the cutouts do. So this is the difference between control, lifts, what you effectively doing. Release.
You want to reduce, because the slalom boards also have a rather wide tail, because you need the power to load up the fin and really go fast, and also keep the direction stability. But then you have a lot of wetted surface around the fin area, and you need to get rid of that pressure somehow. That's why we do the cutouts. Also to make the board more controllable, because it always goes from rail to rail a little bit, even if you go flat out. And if you have full wide tail, you always get that bounce back. So
okay, so pushing back up, is it?
The leeward rail always pushes you back into a flat. So this is irritating when you really go fast. That was when we started doing cutouts, but because we realized we want to get rid of this. And this was the first thing. And then we also try to reduce wetted surface to go faster, and then also to keep a certain rail line, because this is the smallest board, it has the longest rail line.
Okay.
The bigger boards we start to cut out.
I was going to say the
cutouts
are much further forward because they've got a wider tail. And
wider tail. So it's on the bigger boards, we're basically using two outlines. The bottom outline is the wetted surface, because we have the cut here, let's say.
Yeah.
And then we have a deck outline where your heel stands. So you have extra 2-3 centimeters of leverage on the fin. So this is why the cutouts got more defined and
I mean, because it's a full, proper, I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, but it's unbelievable what small changes make big difference.
Ah, interesting.
And that's why we also, like slalom racing still happening, we introduced now 2 new sizes, because we start with a 62.5 and we go up to the 85, the biggest one. Yeah. And now we introduced 2 new sizes, 66, 105 liter, and the 76 with 125 liter. This might be used also in the Slalom X.
That's what I was going to say, Slalom X. How does that affect your boards? Does it change anything?
No, not really, because you still need top speed. Yeah. So this year they used the 62.5 because it was only in Fuerte in Gran Canaria, where it's really windy. But if they do, like say, in a spot where it's not as windy, they maybe want to use a slightly bigger board. But they want fast speed and good jibing, and they can jump. With this speed, you do a little kick, you jump. Yeah. If you're in the right position, you easy get over the obstacle. Yeah. If you're a little bit late or early, then you land on it. But it makes it exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. And interestingly, obviously, if we go into slalom boards, they're all named with width. Because the width is probably the most important thing when we're talking about slalom boards. A lot of the other guys, you know, it's volume. So, you know, for people who are going 66, what's that mean? But you've just got to get your head around widths. Everyone I know in the slalom world talks in widths.
Yeah, in slalom, because this is the planning surface which defines the width, and they know exactly what sail fits on it. Yeah.
And to pick your sort of lineup, because as far as I understand it, especially in other brands, I'm not sure, JP, you can tell me, but they almost have 2 ways of going. So you can have the 85 and then the something and then something, or you can take the in-between sizes. A bit like a 50, 47, 45, you can choose.
Yeah, in the past, slalom, they all had light wind was 85 for everyone, unless you're a light rider, but in the World Cup, it was only 85 for light guys, but it's not only World Cup riders. That's why we introduced also the 76 as the all-round slalom board, because there's a lot of people out there who like to ride a slalom board, and they're not full-on racers. They're like hobby racers, for example, and they don't need to go all the way to 85. They have so much more fun with the 76. Yeah. They maybe have 2 fin sizes, and they cover a huge range, and they have fun all the time with the slalom board. And the others are very extreme,
specific,
like 85, for the World Cup. But as I said, there's not only World Cup racers out there. There's a lot of people who have a lot of fun with the race sail and the slalom board, and they just want to blast around the bay. And that's why we have the full range of slalom boards, not just for World Cup guys.
Okay, well, World Cup, let's end on one thing. Who's going to win the Slalom X next year?
Hopefully one of our guys.
All right, Werner. Cheers, mate. Okay, so there you go. Stay tuned to the channel. We've got more coming.